So many of my photo collages incorporate cemeteries, Day of the Dead imagery, and just different allusions to death in general. I've always had a morbid fascination with death and many of the traditions surrounding funerals, just honoring the dead in general. My mother is from El Salvador, where they actually do celebrate Day of the Dead, and she has stories of going to cemeteries, putting out flowers, and having parties on All Saints Day, when in the United States many people would consider that sort of celebration inappropriate, or at least just off. But she has many happy memories of visiting dead relatives. And I would enjoy hearing these stories when I was a little girl, and I think that was so interesting, in part because I couldn't take part in that. She doesn't have any relatives who are buried here. My father isn't Latin American, and he doesn't have a big family in general, doesn't have that many graves that anyone in the family goes to visit. So it was more so I was, more than anything, just really enchanted by these stories from my childhood, and they influenced me to keep exploring cemeteries and themes surrounding death in my work. My name is Christine Stoddard. I'm a writer, an artist, and visual storyteller based in Brooklyn. And today I'm going to show you how to make very haunting photo collages in honor of Halloween and Day of the Dead. So to create a photo collage, I typically will bring in a bunch of photos, lots of rejects into Photoshop, just images I'm not using for anything else. Ones that don't have great color, composition, and really the reason for that is I don't want to repeat images that I'm using in other projects. I want to make use of pictures that I'm just not using for other projects. And also, these photos that are kind of off or even awkward just have a lot of potential for photo collages. Like, I can manipulate them in ways that highlight what might be interesting about them, even if they're not technically very good. So after I've gone through a bunch of the photos and just gotten some idea of colors, themes, I will create a new document in Photoshop. I'm just going to call this one Collage. And I always set it to CMYK because I like to print these images. I'll print them on canvases or cardstock, and they're not just for digital use. That's why I always set them up like that. So here I have one set to a square, but rectangular work can be fine too. It just depends on what your purposes are. Like if you're putting this in a video, if you're going to be printing this, if it's for digital use only. Okay, let me start by choosing this cemetery picture. So I'm going to select whatever photo I want to start with. And then I'm going to bring that into the file I've created. And here's where your judgment, just as a creative person, comes in. I'm just going to play around with the photo. Move it. I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to place it. I want the headstone to be off center, so I'm doing that. Since this is my base layer, it's going to be at the very bottom of the collage, so I want to adjust the contrast just a little bit, make it slightly darker, because I'm going to be putting other images on top of it and changing the opacity of those images. So I'm going to keep the opacity of this base layer at 100%, so that way it's a full colored image. It doesn't have a ghostly effect to it. I'm going to look through my other photos. And let's say, I want to bring some flowers in there. Why not? Maybe some trees. Okay, I will bring these flowers in. So again, I'm going to select the image. You can select just part of it. I personally prefer to select the whole image and then place it, shrink it, place it. So there, I've placed the image. I'll scoot it just a little bit. So obviously you can't see the base layer now because you have an image on top of it. So you have to change the opacity here. We're at 100% now, which is what really any photo is going to be, any normal photo before you've played around with it. Look at what happens as I go down in opacity. So it's becoming translucent. If you go all the way, of course, it's going to become transparent. You don't want that. You still want a little bit of it to pop out. So the opacity is really up to you. This is your judgment call. I want it to be around 50%. So now I'm going to scoot it a bit more to make some of that petal more visible. Okay, great. So this is a photo collage with just 2 images, but really you can add as many as you want. I'm going to bring in a couple more. Let's see. I'm going to bring this lady in, this woman from this statue. So I'm going to select this one as well. I'm going to place it here. And again, I'll have to adjust the opacity here because if you leave it at 100%, then it's going to block the other images. Okay, so now I've placed it. And again, I'm just going to play around, scoot down the opacity, see where that leaves me. Okay, I like it there, so that's 23%, 25%. I'm going to scoot it over because I don't want the woman and the flower to be right on top of each other. Otherwise you can't really see either one. So I'm going to make her slightly off center, but still toward the middle. Okay, so now you can see the 3 images. There's a tombstone, there are the flowers, and there's the woman. I'm going to bring in 1 or 2 more. Because again, you can layer these however you'd like. I want to see what it looks like with some more flowers on it. So again, just placing the image, scooting it, resizing it, just adjusting it to put it wherever you want it to be. And I don't want the flowers to be, the 2 different kinds of flowers to be on the same side of the image. I want a little bit more variety than that. So that's why I'm putting these ones on the opposite side. Now, of course, if I wanted to switch, I could easily flip this, I could transform it, but I want these flowers to be on this side. Okay, going to go back to the opacity. So remember, the base layer was at 100%, the second layer was at 50%, the third one was at 25%. So as you keep going, your layers have to be less and less opaque because you don't want them to block the images that are underneath them. So make sure you're on the correct layer when you're adjusting the opacity. So that way you can actually see what you're doing, what change it has. Okay. So the previous layer was at 25%. I want this one to be around 15 probably, 15 or 20. You can also just type the number in You don't have to scoot on the scale like that. I'll put it at 20. Good. I'm going to position it, reposition it, just because I want those flowers to be spaced out a little more. And actually, because the flowers are on almost opposite sides of the collage, they can be the same opacity. There's not anything competing in those layers. So there, I'm bringing this one back to 25% so it can pop more. You can see more of the red. So you can also adjust the hue, the saturation, the lightness. I'm going to do that here with this red. I'm going to make it a little bluer. I'm going to go to the orange flowers. And same thing, I want to adjust the hue, and I'll also adjust the saturation there. Super saturated. All right, good. And then we go to this lady. There, and that's a photo collage. That's done. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Christine Stoddard, once again, and my website is worldofchristinestoddard.com. There you can check out all sorts of samples of my photo collages in different styles. The one I showed you today is just one of the techniques that I use, but I have plenty of others, in addition to mixed media paintings, videos, writings, and more. Thanks.